Brought to you by Mint Mobile. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is Thursday, June 26, 2025, and I've got the lovely Patrick Holland from CNET with me here today. Hi, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good now that I'm talking to you. How you doing?
Oh, thanks. That's nice. I'm great. It's Pride Week in San Francisco, so there's lots of fun stuff going on. And then, of course, we got some big news about Samsung, and I'm excited because I'm probably going to see you there. July 9th, folks, mark your calendars. Unpacked in Brooklyn, New York will be taking place. A bunch of us will be there, and I'm excited for me because it's like foldable heaven, right? Look, the reality is this, and this is what I think I'd like to hear your thoughts on, is we have been waiting for Samsung to wake up as the giant that stirs, because the Chinese have been eating their lunch in terms of foldables for a while now, right? And Lenovo being Motorola, right, as well. I'm counting Lenovo Motorola in there because they're a Chinese company, even though, they're US, they're a very well-known brand. They've been eating their lunch on the flip side, and, Oppo, OnePlus, Vivo, Huawei, Honor, particularly Honor, is been eating their lunch on the fold side. And then we're getting some wearables apparently too. Again, we don't know any of the details. We can't talk about what is happening there because it's all speculation right now. But the thing I'm interested about, and I want to hear your thoughts, Patrick, is they're finally making a really thin fold. Because last year, when I reviewed the Fold 6, I'd played with OnePlus Open. I'd played with Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I'd play with the Honor Magic V3, which at the time was the thinnest phone, which was only overtaken by the Oppo Find N5, which I have now. And compared to them, the Fold 6 was like a freaking dinosaur. Like, it looked like 5 years behind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think the other thing too is even we haven't even mentioned the Huawei with that dual hinge that everyone's calling like a trifold.
Yeah, right.
That I can't remember if it came out right before, but you just saw all this. I had a Xiaomi Fold that I was testing, which for I think 2 days was the world's thinnest phone, and then Honor came out.
That's right.
So I do feel like the thinnest phone thing. Yeah, it's a little silly. Like we get down to like fractions of a millimeter.
But my point is, right? We got to a point where now it's fractions of millimeters, but that point we have reached it, and Samsung has not. And as far as we know right now,
Samsung, it looks bloated, and even though they had widened the main screen when it's closed to be more like a phone, but yeah, so Samsung has some catching up to do in terms of the hardware. And here's the thing, though, they've had some of these weird teases because they've teased that this would be like a super thin foldable phone, possibly as thin, if not thinner than the Galaxy S25 Edge. Then they also teased that it would be Ultra.
So, that's the thing I'm really most confused about.
Yeah, and is this the same phone, or is this are there going to be an Ultra version that's at a higher price point and a thinner one that's at a lower price point? But the thing about the Ultra that really, truly excites me is not only the fact that it might be thinner than the current Galaxy Fold, but it actually might have the Edge's 200 megapixel main camera.
Yeah.
That is a game changer.
But we do need a telephoto because as much as I love the Edge, and we're going to talk about the Edge in a minute, I've covered it extensively. I really like that phone. I don't understand people who don't get this phone. Like, yes, there are flaws. Absolutely. But like, seriously, once you touch that phone. But the point is, 10x telephoto on even, like, it doesn't matter the price. On a flagship right now, like, nothing CMS Phone 2, $279, does better 10x and 20x shots. In fact, it does 20x, which the Edge doesn't do. But maxes out at 10x. I get better photos out of this $279 phone with a 2x small sensor, 50 megapixel telephoto without OIS than I get out of the Edge, which is crazy. And you can scale that up. You can say Nothing Phone 3a Pro. You can say Pixel 9a even, which doesn't have a telephoto, takes better 10x shots than Edge. And I'm like, how did Samsung, with a 200 megapixel sensor, right? How did they mess that up? Like, how did they stop at 10x and the results aren't that great? Why didn't they use some kind of AI zoom like we've seen on OnePlus 13?
And I wonder what that sensor size is. That's the thing. I think you get all these megapixels, and I wonder if it's a smaller version or smaller sensor, or there's something going on with the sensor that changes that. But it is, I'm a big fan of the little zoom trick that Google uses on its pixels, because when you get in tight, you do see the difference on a digital zoom on a pixel than even something like an iPhone sometimes, which is
absolutely
not
and
a
it's
great
the
zoom
super
camera.
res zoom thing where they use your handshake to do like sub-pixel interpolation, and it works really well. And you know who else is doing a really good job, I think, is Oppo, OnePlus, Realme. On their higher end phones, OnePlus 13 is the poster child for that for North America, but the entire Find X8 series does it too. To some extent, the Find N5, the folding phone, does it too. Is when you zoom past a certain level, it starts using AI to guesstimate what it looks like and sharpen things. And now it sometimes gets it very wrong and you can turn it off. But when it does get it right, I've taken 120x shots with the Ultra, the Find X8 Ultra, the China only phone that I have, that are look like you were using an SLR. It's unbelievable. And you know, why doesn't Samsung have that tech? They're all AI all the time right now. What the hell?
I don't know. And you said Oppo too. I remember when Oppo had, this is years ago, they had their first, I think it was 5 times zoom on a camera phone ever.
The first Reno 10x zoom was the
That's
phone.
what it was, yeah. And we had it here at CNET, and we were a couple blocks away from this park that's elevated. And on top of the park that's a couple blocks away was Pat Sajak and Vanna White doing a promo for Wheel of Fortune. And we were able to hold the phone up to the window, zoom in, and make out Pat Sajak and Vanna White from two and a half blocks away.
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's the transit hub right down by Benioff Salesforce Tower.
Yeah, and I bring that up because that was 6 years ago, and here we are talking about all these phones have made leaps and strides, not only hardware, but the camera software, especially telephoto. And I think Samsung has a lot to prove hardware-wise, and I think the other part of it is how are they using things like AI to improve the cameras, and how are they using things like their One UI to improve the experience of using it software-wise. I still am a big fan of Oppo's and OnePlus's foldable software.
I think you're right, and even generally the suite of AI features that Google provides through Gemini in general for all phones, but also on Pixel, all the additional features that you get there. I think that, as much as Samsung talks so much about AI, I still don't feel like they're quite there. And especially One UI 7, I really liked it. It's a big improvement on One UI 6. I'm still not a huge fan of One UI. I do like that little pill, whatever they call it, at the bottom on the screen that can display your timers and stuff. Kind of like essentially the same as the iPhones, whatever the cutout they call it at the top.
Dynamic
Great, that's
island.
fine. Actually, OnePlus does the same thing, and Oppo does the same thing now on the putting a little oval around the front-facing camera on the front. The problem is that it never displayed any useful information. It was supposed to kind of like learn about your habits and how you use your phone and give you more. But all it gave me every time was the weather, my upcoming calendar appointments, and one news item that was generally not very relevant to me. And I'm like, I'm not panning it. I think the concept is sound. I was expecting more. And if they can deliver more than One UI 8, great. Like, I'm on board. Maybe this was a stepping stone. They had to build it up,
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that this happens quite a bit. I think Samsung is one of probably the companies that happens the most to, where they have a great idea, but they just don't have their developers on board. They don't have outside developers and companies on board with that, because there's so much mileage I think you can get with that. And I think, honestly, even Apple, to some extent, hasn't really fully kind of dug the depths of like Dynamic Island and what it can do. But can I throw it to you? Would you rather a Galaxy Fold that's about the same size as last year, maybe a little bit thinner, but has all this Ultra stuff? Or would you rather one that's super thin, kind of like the Oppo Find N or the Honor phone from last year?
I'd be very happy with just something the form factor of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, but with all the Qualcomm goodness, right? Like 8 Elite, whatever, right? Like I think that's a good standard size. Even OnePlus Open, which is a generation behind now, that hit a form factor that I felt like it's less than a centimeter or roughly a centimeter in thickness, and I'm fine with that. But what Samsung has right now with the Z Fold 6, it's not just the thickness that annoys me. That I can kind of live with because I like big phones. I'm used to them. It's the tall, skinny form factor of the front screen. What I think OnePlus nailed, and Honor before that nailed with the V2, and now of course the V3 and the upcoming V5 that we're going to talk about in a minute, and that Oppo adopted, because the Find and the original was passport shaped and sized, very much like the Pixel Fold, the original, and then they went to a more standard 21:9 kind of aspect ratio front, right? And that's what gave us the Open, OnePlus Open, and then now the Oppo Find N5, which was supposed to be OnePlus Open 2, right? Which I also have. And now the thickness varies there, but it's the form factor, the fact that I'm holding when shut a phone that feels like a heavy, slightly heavy, and maybe slightly thicker, but maybe 1 millimeter thicker flagship phone, like a non-ultra, like 6.3 to 6.5 inch, not 6.7 to 6.9 inch, but like a regular Pixel 9 Pro or iPhone 16 Pro, not the Max, not the XL. I'm holding that in my hand, and when I run out of real estate, I open it up, right? And all of a sudden, I've got something in my hands that is only 4 millimeter thick, 3.1, and that's where the battle can happen. But Samsung does not have to win that battle. What I just want is that aspect ratio. And then I also want, ideally, and I think it's interesting to see, because now that we've seen what they've done to the Edge, what they didn't do a silicon carbon battery, in what we're hearing rumor-wise of this phone being thinner than 9 millimeters, tells me they're gonna have to adopt a silicon carbon battery for the first time to get the battery life we need on a folding phone. And so if they don't, battery life is gonna suck. And so are they doing that? Are they doing silicon carbon or something that gives us the capacity we expect? It doesn't have to be silicon carbon. But the other thing is the cameras, as you mentioned, 200 megapixel main sensor, I'm on board 100%, but give us a telephoto, and not a crappy one too. Like give us not a 12 megapixel, like a 50 megapixel 3x OIS telephoto. It can be a smaller sensor. I'm willing to live with that.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting, because if they do have multiple folds, and I guess we'll talk about flips in just a second here.
Yeah, right.
But here's something that I think a strategy that Motorola and Lenovo has done quite well the last years is having multiple price points, even if the price point of the lower one.
Samsung didn't continue selling the Flip 5 last year at a lower price. That phone was still perfectly competitive, and the Flip 6 was not that much different. But they could have just, I don't know why they didn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is also Samsung, who has price points built in basically every $75 to $100 across their phones, going from like the A series up to the S series. But it just seems like a big miss by Samsung. And maybe they were trying to play it close with all this stuff. And then there's the Flip stuff, which I'm curious about with this FE rumor, if they're really going to do a fan edition of that. What's it going to look like? What's that processor going to look like? Is it just going to be a repackaged Flip 6, which would be okay with a new processor? Or are they going to try to raise the price on the Flip 7 and keep this at the same price, which I hope they don't do. I hope they keep the Flip 7 at the current price of $1,100 for US, and they make a lower price for the FE. That would be very compelling, and I think they get a lot of traction.
Moto has shown us the way for 3 years now by having a $699-ish model, and it's not crap. So like. And Samsung totally has the chops to make a $699 folding phone that's not crap, right? So, here's what I'm kind of expecting we'll see happening. We're going to see, on the fold side, we're going to see thinner, probably not class leading, but close to it, definitely thinner than, or close to like a Pixel 9 Pro Fold, with that form factor and much better cameras than the previous models, and, hopefully software improvements. And then, it'll really legitimize the fold form factor in markets where Samsung is strong, which is basically North America. Because right now, Google did it, I think, with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. This is my favorite foldables, but freaking Tensor, man. I am a Pixel user. My main, look, here's the thing. I switched from an 8 Pro to a 9 Pro Fold, because for a year before that, I had 8 Pro and then 7 Pro before that, side by side with OnePlus Open. Were my two phones. Like basically I was like, if I need to do something quickly and get good cameras, like cameras I can fully trust, I'm using my Pixel. And then if I want to do something really productive, I got my Open. And now I'm like, merge the two with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. But then the cameras weren't quite there. And then the Tensor drove me nuts. And then I was like, okay, so now guess what I'm doing now? Pixel 9 Pro XL with Oppo Find N5 because it's like the OnePlus Open version too, right?
And that's a great. The Oppo phone is. And the Pixel's
combo.
fantastic, but the
it's
Oppo
an amazing
is just,
combo, by the way. It's an amazing combo.
Legendary.
But if we can finally get Samsung to do kind of something that is what the 9 Pro Fold brought, but with that Snapdragon goodness, and for those of you who are big One UI fans with One UI, I think that's going to, and also the brand recognition. And, the other big question mark is the price with the tariffs and stuff. And if it's thinner and more high tech, is Samsung going to start charging $2,300 for a folding phone? If they do, oof. So,
well, if they do, I feel like if they go above 2,000 with a premium one, they have to keep that other one at the current price point or just a little lower, like even 1,800. But yeah, the tariffs are kind of the wild card. Like we've not seen attributed price increases from anyone like Samsung or Apple or Google yet, but now this is the season. Are we going to see the folds have a higher price, their watches, or even like we have the Pixel coming up in August, right? Is that going to be higher? So I'm curious about that, but let me get your take on this though, because I'm curious about watches as well, because last year, I think we got 1 or 2. We got the Ring and we got the watch.
Yes.
But we know there's 3, technically 4 watch models. We probably won't get an FE at this event. But I think for the watch stuff, what I'm interested about, and Samsung kind of teased this a little bit, we covered it a little bit at CNET here, is this kind of idea of an AI health coach on your watch.
Yeah.
And I think that might be for me as exciting as in the
Look,
Fold
I'm a big
Ultra.
fan of, like, usually I wear, currently my wearables, my normal wearables are an Ultra Human Ring and a OnePlus Watch 3, mostly because of the battery life and the design. I'm like chunky, traditional looking watches. Today I'm wearing my Galaxy Watch Ultra, and that's because every now and then I like to change it up. But I'm a big fan. I wore the Galaxy Ring for quite a while. I've had many Galaxy watches over the years. I'm actually a very big fan of Samsung's wearables and their general health app and metrics. And it's accurate. It's good. It's got good suggestions. I really like what they're doing. So I think they're in a very much in a leadership position in the West, at least. We're, almost toe to toe with Apple. And Apple is still definitely the leader with the Apple Watch, I think. But anything that Samsung can add to even sweeten the deal, I mean, especially because we know some of that stuff's going to trickle down to the old watches, right? I think that's awesome. And, right now, I don't know exactly what the rumors are. There's rumors of an updated Ultra. There's rumors of one with a spinny bezel like the old days. There's rumors, obviously, of a base model, Watch 8, whatever. But, I'm whatever they're going to do there, I think it's going to be software and AI, and I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited about it too, because even though like I'm not a health nut, I like to keep track of a few basic metrics, and having something that coaches me and suggests me without making, and that's my big fear right now, because in the past, some of the stuff that Samsung has popped up suggests I was like, that's fat phobic, or that's, whatever. And I'm like, Korea, and I'm like, can we please, like, it's lost in translation here. Something went wrong. You're slightly offensive. So hopefully they can work on that. But I think that there's a lot of promise there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I would not want a human assistant or AI assistant that fat shames me or makes me feel bad about myself. It's true. But I got my Aura Ring and I have my Apple Watch right now. I'm testing. So the reason I bring up the AI stuff is you saw Apple is dipping the tip part of its toe into the AI coach waters with their workout buddy stuff, which is much more limited than I think our imagination. So, but I think here's where Samsung could get ahead is having this coach come out. We've seen it on tied to things like Aura Ring, Ultra Human, and some other wearables where they have this coaching. But again, it's how does it give you that info? Does it offend you? But also, does it give you actionable things? And I really do like the Aura Ring in that sense, but that is obviously a subscription.
Yeah, I mean, I have never used it because I never got a review in it, and mostly I don't want to pay a subscription. Like that's the other fear I have with Samsung. They're going to introduce a subscription. I mean, look, you got to free things aren't really free. I get that. I just like the idea that for me as a light user, I just need to track my sleep, my steps, maybe the occasional, the extent of my workouts is, give me data on my walks, like I don't even need a ring for that. My watch is on my wrist during the day, but my ring is only on my wrist at my ring is the only thing on my wrist at night. So, finger at night. So like, it's just, I don't, and for that, I don't think I should pay a subscription. I'm sorry. Like, I think that should be basic stuff that's baked in. I paid for my ring and I get it. And so I've heard tons of great things about Aura. I had Victoria Song on the podcast a few weeks back. She's the wearable expert, and we talked about a lot of that stuff. The shaming, the coaching, the people who only live by their goals and are completely slaves to their goals, No, but because they're incentivized by the software, like it kind of like nags them and they feel guilty. And, there are some really dark sides to wearables that hopefully Samsung doesn't fall into.
Well, but, I like, and I say, and just to close that loop real quick for you.
Yeah, sure.
No pun intended with the Apple Watch. But no, I think the interesting part is also the wellness side. And I feel like that's the stuff that I feel like that's got the longer term thing. And we're not going to even mention RFK and him saying that we have to have wearables on everyone's wrist.
Oh, geez.
There's something to that, but maybe not the reason he's given us. But the Samsung event is going to be very interesting. I'm excited to be in New York again. I feel bad for West Coast, where it's going to be at 7 a.m. on the West Coast.
Brutal.
But on the flip side of it, I am just thrilled to see what the hardware is. And I mean, I'll say one more thing about the Galaxy Ring. I really wanted it to have an app on the iPhone to do that, because I feel like they would actually bring in a lot of people. I cannot
believe Apple hasn't done this yet. This is something they could do as a side project in 6 months and nail. And I don't know why they're not doing it. Like, seriously, Apple? Like, this is a lost chance of revenue, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to
Samsung,
wear a watch.
And some extent to Samsung, too, for not doing the opposite way is my point. But it just feels like that's those little levers when it comes to tariffs. It's like Tim Cook's going to like, all right, let's put it on Android. It's like they have it ready. They just haven't pulled it out
yet. A couple of more things about the rumors. So here's what we quickly know. On the Fold, 3.9 millimeters, the rumor for it unfolded, 200 megapixel camera, and a normal form factor outside display. That's for the Fold. That's all we know right now. We don't know anything else. That's the rumors that are flowing. And when I say no, like, take that with a grain of salt. On the flip side, all we know is that there are two phones. One is hopefully more affordable and looks a lot like the previous models, like with that cutout screen thing. And then we are hearing rumors that Samsung has finally woken up in the same way as they're woken up about thickness on the Fold. And on the flip side, they're saying, oh, maybe we should have a full screen in the front and have the cameras jut through it, like Moto's been doing for freaking 3 years now, right? So, all of that is good, but I'm like, where has Samsung been all this time? Like, did you not check the room? Like, you've been saying it, I've been saying it, almost every reporter that's been, or creator that's been on this podcast in the last 2-3 years have been yelling off the rooftops that Samsung is coasting. And like, why does it take you this long to get things going? Come on, like you're like Apple, you have unlimited budgets. Make it happen, man. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, and I wonder, there's a story to be told there, right? That is it like a purposeful decision? Is it it's delayed because of like technology or manufacturing? Like, there's all these questions that would make sense of why. But it is obvious that the result is that you look at any other foldable outside of the US, and the Fold is behind, period.
Yeah, I think basically what is happening here, it's lack of humility on Samsung's part. I think that they're so in their little like lane, they don't look at the rest, and they don't look outside. Like, we know what we're doing best. Kind of like Steve Jobs, but he knew what we needed. Like, he knew what we wanted ultimately. He got it right almost every time. Not all the time, butterfly keys. That was after him anyway. That was more like what's his name? Johnny Ive type of thing. But my point is, like, I think they want to be Apple and they behave like Apple, but they don't know what they're doing and they're doing it wrong. Yet sometimes they're doing it right, like the Edge. And sometimes they're doing it right, like the Note. And sometimes like they nail it, like the health and wearable stuff. Like, it's really weird to me how they are so insular, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah. And the Edge, just to really speak to that, I think that the Edge bodes well for the Fold, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because it's so small. We know that Samsung has not had the best history with putting a battery in a small place. And I think this shows that they can get a phone out like that. That bump on the camera bump on the back is giant, but it makes sense that you add this very high end camera to what would otherwise be, I think, a more affordable phone. Yeah. But yeah, that's me.
So the rumors are also rumors that the Edge isn't selling super well. And I'm like, duh, like I'm not surprised. I think it's going to take a generation or two before they can really legitimately replace the Plus or whatever with it, if that's what the intent is. I still think after having handled it and still using it, that the Edge is a delightful phone if you are willing to accept only a day of battery life and willing to accept that limitation I mentioned earlier about the 10x zoom. This phone feels so fantastic in hand, and please don't put a case on it. But the point is, like, what else did you expect? I think it's very interesting that Samsung was very shy at giving journalists access to that phone. Like, I don't know if you know, but a lot of us, like you CNET, you got everything. But a lot of us, we didn't get it. Like, so many of us who normally get stuff from Samsung did not get the Edge. I got my Edge from AT&T. Thank you, folks. And they wouldn't send me one. They wouldn't send me to New York for a briefing. They wouldn't send me to doing content capture, nothing. And I'm not upset. Like, it's their prerogative. I'm just saying, like, I think they were, and creators, they were really on board for the YouTubers. But I think they underestimate the fact that many of us tech journalists, older school, non-creator, non-TikToker, lifestyle people, could understand the compromises engineering-wise they had to make and still valued the product. And for me, the revelation was touching it, handling it, feeling it, living with it day to day for a week or more. When I was like, okay, this, I can, like, it's not for me, but I can see how it would be a super sexy thing to use, and it's actually not making that many compromises in the end.
Yeah,
no, the price is ridiculous. But
the price is ridiculous.
How is that relevant in the US market when everything is subsidized by the carriers, right? Like, I'm saying, pricing in the US, we shouldn't even have that conversation. It doesn't matter. Like, it's going to be subsidized somehow by a carrier. Like,
and that's the problem. I promise this relates to the S25 Edge, but something like the Pixel 9a is a brilliant phone.
Yes.
But when you see that you can get, like, even the Pixel 9 Pro for a while was like $100 more, you're like, yeah. Or you get subsidy from your carrier, or it's quote unquote free if you stay on like a 24-month contract.
What I'm saying.
It's a problem with those budget phones. But the Edge, so I didn't get to review the Edge, but when I got to play around with it, I think the thing that, like, a lot of people that struck me was just how light it was. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be like less fatigue holding it, and all those like little subtle things that we don't really... It's
perfectly balanced. Like, that's the thing that blew my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you make a phone that has such a prominent camera bump on the top, and you hold it and you're like, this doesn't feel top heavy?
And then also it feels kind of like a movie prop too. It just does not. It's like the first time like I
Star
tried,
Trek. Yeah.
It just does not seem like it's a real thing. But I think it's good though. I think that the Edge is good. I think it's good that they got it out. I think some of these, I feel there's probably a little back and forth. Like, they probably took technology from the Fold to minimize things, but also I feel like there's probably some tech in there that is on the inside that will hopefully contribute to a thinner Fold in 2 weeks. So we'll see.
So let's switch to some nothing rumors and leaks. I mean, some of these leaks might be intentional, because I know how nothing. Carl's marketing machine is awesome, and I kind of appreciate it. And I don't mind these, kind of slowly leaking stuff out. Here's what we know from last week. I'm just going to quickly recap. On July 1st, we'll find out what the products are, the details of them in the official capacity. And at some point after that, you'll see reviews, right? So what we know is the headphones are coming from nothing. We've seen some leaks now. So this week, we finally have images and videos of these headphones. And oh my God, I thought the AirPods Max were going to be polarizing, where they're weird looking pebble design. But these things, I'm totally on board. But I can understand how some people are freaking out because they look like cassette tapes. Like, I don't know. You've seen the photos, but
I saw the photo. I think it looks like a translucent. Remember those? I think it's Bowers and Wilkins headphones that are kind of like that.
Yeah,
but it's like if they had like Nintendo DS put on them.
I was expecting the cushions here. I've got the nothing ear here. They're high end. I was expecting the cushions to be that kind of shape, like round your ear, that oval you see. That's the main body of the earbud, but instead it's like this round rect square thing. Ooh, I mean,
And
I
also-
love the transparency effect. Like that's enough. That's nothing. I expect that from nothing, right?
Yeah,
That's
and also,
normal.
is it going to be like it have my glyph lighting match or coordinate between my phone and the headphones? Like, there's so many questions I have. And also, I hope they sound good. They look wild, but I hope
so
they
the
sound
partnership
good.
with KEF, like the British speaker manufacturer, was announced, and that has me as a reluctant audiophile, as I call myself, because I worked in audio for many years, and I don't want to be called an audiophile because I'm a cheap ass. I like to really like keep things affordable. So I always weigh I want really good quality, but I also want to spend too much money on. That's kind of my thing that makes me really excited about audio. Now, affordable is going to be definitely a thing for them. I think that the price point is going to be very competitive, but I'm worried with this KEF partnership because here's the thing. Nothing's earbuds to date have been some of the best, in my opinion, on the market. And I recommend them and I use them. And even the Ear A, which actually my favorite because they're yellow. I have the yellow ones, which are really cool. Have a phenomenal sound signature and it's all tuned in-house. And now they're going to KEF. And KEF, don't get me wrong, makes great speakers, but KEF has never made a pair of headphones that I know of that was any good. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I'm not sure that I've never heard of KEF headphones. And so I'm kind of like, why are you giving up all this in-house expertise that you have just to put a brand on there? Like that, I'm worried. I'm worried about the sound quality on them. I'm worried they're going to mess something up. But who knows? All I can tell you is that I think the design is I like it. I think it's cool and it's going to be super polarizing and let's see what happens.
Yeah. And I wonder also if it's going to just be that it's not blue, but it's kind of like a bluish tint to it. Like if that's going to be the thing, like, are we kind of going back to translucent products again a little bit nothing's kind of been doing that a little bit with its phones.
You're thinking like the iMac ears.
Yeah, maybe
like,
that, but like how everyone like just had translucent
blue.
toasters.
Yeah,
Bondi, whatever.
It was so bad.
It was really bad. And then they took away and they made it white.
Please don't make that happen again. Like,
let me ask you this though, because so Carl obviously used to be with OnePlus, and OnePlus was really well known for its value phones, and then they went premium, and some of them are pretty good, and some of them are great. He left. Now we're at nothing. The budget phones have been like, and now we're having rumors of this Nothing Phone 3.
So
are they jumping the shark again?
Just before we got on the podcast, there's a leak out there on X, folks. Have a look. I mean, I'm not active on X, but somebody shared it with me and said, "Did you see this?" And I don't know if it's a render or real or what, obviously. But like I'm happy. Like I'm not unhappy with what I'm seeing, but it's not. It does not seem in line with what I was expecting from Nothing. And it's kind of like got a lot of stuff busyness on top and very little busyness on the bottom, which is kind of it seems, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's less interesting than even the Nothing Phone 3A series that we got, which I think, again, were very polarizing, especially the Pro with that massive camera bump. But I liked them. I thought they looked really cool. And this, together with Snapdragon 8S Gen 4, which we know is what it's going to have, right? Like, I'm not against it. This is a great chip, but, they've been saying, we're making a flagship. Come on. Like, 8 Elite is what we want, is what we expect at this point. And then there's this design here that is going to be even more polarizing because I think it deviates quite a bit from what they've done in the past, at least if that's true, right? We don't know. But I'll put a link in the show notes about like all these, different leaks and stuff. I'm not concerned. I think the price is going to be good. The phone's going to be great. The OS is going to be fantastic. Nothing OS has been a super awesome Android skin. I've loved it. I just reviewed the CMS Phone 2 Pro and give it a 4.8 out of 5. I think it's one of the $279. This is like, it makes you question why you even need a flagship and why flagship or even mid-rangers exist. It's so good. And so I see that phone and I'm like, I hope that I know the software is going to be as good, but I hope the hardware, even though the hardware is going to be, of course, a flagship grade, I hope that we're not completely disappointed with design because that's kind of where Nothing is at. Even the CMF, is cool and interesting looking.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. I think the price point will be part of the determining factor, but again, and they might not have as many carrier kind of deals as some other phone makers have to bring that price point down.
I mean, no, this is probably just going to be sold on Nothing's website. Exactly. I don't really expect anything else for the US. At least it's going to be officially sold, not through the developer program, and it's going to support carriers, right? Yeah. So what we know right now is Snapdragon 8S Gen 4. We've got 3 50 megapixel cameras. One of them is a periscope telephoto 3X, which is all very good news. Big battery, 5150 milliamp hour, 100 watt charging and wireless charging. We don't know the speed on that, but it has it. Of course, a 6.7 inch 1.K OLED. All of this is pretty much what you'd expect from an upper mid-range, affordable flagship. And if the price is right, they could totally nail this.
But what if they did this and then at November, December, hey, we got a 3 Pro, and the 3 Pro is more expensive, has not only the Snapdragon 8 Elite, but maybe whatever the next chip will be
2,
for that. 8 Elite 2 or 9 Elite?
Whatever it's going to be called. Who knows?
More Elite. But I think I could see that path. And that's why I mentioned OnePlus earlier, because that's kind of what they ended up doing. And then they kind of lost their way with it.
For Carl, right? I think, and I'm not sure, I think that because he doesn't have Pete Lau anymore kind of interfering. No offense to Pete. He's a great guy. I think he's taken OnePlus in a good direction ultimately. Not the direction I would have taken OnePlus into, but, Carl is running the show now. It's his baby. So I think he can, when Carl left right around and right after the Nord, the initial Nord, and the Nord was a return to form. I don't know if you remember that phone, because I got a review in it of the original Nord, and it blew my freaking mind. It felt like that CMF Nothing Phone 2 Pro, that I just reviewed, that was such a value for the money. And I think Carl's not going to lose track of that. They do know that they need a flagship, but you've noticed that they spun off CMF as a budget brand. They are making the 3As are the sweet spot, right? The 3A series right now is what I would recommend people buy, even when I'm seeing the specs for the 3 right now. But you do need to be playing in all the leagues.
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, I'm not going to fault them for doing a kind of flagship.
And I'm excited about it. In fact, I'm slightly maybe more excited about the Nothing Phone 3 than the Fold and the Flip. Just because it's something very, again, there's a lot at stake for both Samsung and Nothing.
Yeah.
But I think for Nothing, there's slightly more at stake just because of how big they are. And they've had so many great successes, not only this year, but especially this year with, the 3A and 3A Pro, I'm head over heels for. But
absolutely.
I'm so curious how they do it.
And the earbuds. The CMF, the CMF earbuds, this $59 or $69 ones, the Plus, CMF Buds 2 Pro Plus or 2 Plus. Holy crap for the money. I'm that's 90% of the Nothing normal non-CMF experience for, $69. You forget getting AirPods of any kind. Seriously, even the Pros, I don't think are. You get the connectivity and you get probably better quality long term, but screw that. At $69, you can buy a pair a year, okay? And if you lose one, you don't feel like a complete idiot having to spend $299 again for another pair of earbuds,
Or even what is it? Apple charges $30 for the little silicon tips.
This is my seeing reluctant audiophile. I'm cheap. I want cheap but good. I got a couple of devices here that I've just acquired this week that have come out this week, which is really cool. And I want to quickly show them and we can talk about them a little bit. I've got this Realme P3 Ultra here. This is a new kind of line for Realme. It's kind of a mid-range line. They have a proliferation of phones. This is, part of the former BBK group. So it's think of it as Oppo on budget. I kind of call Realme what OnePlus used to be, in terms of the pricing and the product lineup. But this P3 line came out in China and now it's out globally finally. And I'm going to quickly unbox this Ultra for my audience here on Patreon. So I'm not going to set up or anything. I just want to show you because this is the cool color. So, there's going to be a box here with a case. They always have a TPU case in these and some documentation. And then you get the phone. And this is the part that is cool. I'm going to quickly show you what's in the box as well, because you always get a charger with these guys. And in fact, this is a SuperVOOC 80-watt charger. So we know that it charges at least at 80 watt. This is what is in the box. So here's the phone though. The phone is the exciting part because this phone, as you can see already, It's looking kind of cool with this orange accent, but like, let me pull it out of this thing and you'll see what I'm talking about. This phone is got this weird moon print on the back. Do you see how it's got?
It's like, yeah, it's like a little like lunar surface. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
And this is apparently a Russian version because it's all in Russian. But I'm going to read this. Dimensity 8350 Ultra, which is a brand new chip that just came out. It's very affordable, but almost flagship, like upper mid-range chip. 1.5K AMOLED at 120 hertz. Apparently, this is how you spell hertz in Russian. And 6,000 milliamp hour battery, 80 watt charging, and 50 megapixel Sony IMX 896 with OIS. But apparently this phone, don't get too excited, I think it only has that and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So it's like, but it's I believe 339.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Right?
And
so
obviously this
like,
is not in the US. It's
yeah,
like
no,
for
this is
India,
global. So you can probably buy it like obviously in Russia, apparently. But anyway, so that's one device. And I'll put a link in the show notes to the specs on GSM Arena. It just came out. Yeah, what do you think?
Let me ask you, I will go back to the lunar back or the moon back there.
The moon back.
I mean, I love it, but why?
Because like, Realme. I mean, Realme does all kinds of cool stuff.
And is it like, this is where I can't see, is it like a glass back or is it matte?
It's either plastic, it's definitely shiny. It's shiny, it's shiny glass, like it's glassy. I don't know if you can see the reflections there.
Oh, okay, a little bit,
see,
yeah.
Look at there's craters.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's definitely shiny. Is it glass? Probably not. I mean, it's probably like very strong plastic, but at that price,
And I'm not against plastic. It definitely survives drops.
Like, check out the power button is orange, and then look at that little orange accent around the camera pod.
I love it.
You see
I
that?
love it.
Yeah.
It's a handsome phone.
All right, so that's basically one of the phones I'm going to be playing with in the next few days. And then I got this Chromebook that just came out from Lenovo. It's called the Lenovo Chromebook Plus 14. And what's cool about this is it's super premium. It's like a MacBook Air. Look at this. Aluminum. It's got an A and C port on one side and a C and headphone jack on the other. So you can charge it on either side. Very smart. And it's got a beautiful glass trackpad and Lenovo style keyboard here, as you can see, right?
Wow.
Of course, super nice chiclet keyboard backlit. This is a high-end product. Now, I don't know the price exactly, but I think it's around $700. So, not cheap for a Chromebook, but it's all like metal. Even this palm rest is metal and everything. It's really nice. And on the bottom, it has that Google design that we saw on the Pixel Book Pro. You see that? How it's got that ridged. So this is a collaboration with Google. This is kind of like Google's flagship Chromebook, sanctioned by Google. It's a Plus, so it's got all the Gemini stuff on it. I've used it. I've only had it for like 12 hours or something, like last night. So I've been using it a little bit to write. And it's got a nice webcam with a little shutter because it's Lenovo. It's got all Lenovo goodness on a very googly product. And the key thing here is it's powered by that new MediaTek Companion Ultra chip, which is essentially a 50 TOPS AI chip. It's essentially, think of it as a MediaTek Dimensity 9400, but optimized for use on laptops. So it's kind of like, in the same way as like the Snapdragon X it has the same Orion core as the Snapdragon 8 Elite, right? So it's kind of variation for laptops on the 8 Elite, or the other way around, since the Snapdragon X came out first. And so the 8 Elite's variation on that. And think of it the other way here. It's like the Dimensity 9400 as a mobile chip came out first, and then they made a Companion Ultra out of that. And so performance, I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM and like 512, 1 terabyte. Like, it's high end. But my point is, like, performance on this thing, I have never used a Chromebook that fast. It feels like I'm on like a high end PC or Mac right now.
Yeah, I miss the days of these more. I would say this is premium, but maybe not like $1,000, $1,200 premium like Chromebook. But I think that if it's $700 or $800, that's a perfect price point.
I mean, I can't remember exactly, but it's not brutal. That's all I know.
Yeah, and
let
I
me
think
look it up,
that
actually.
and the more premium build and features, I think that's the only thing I think with Chromebooks is like the longevity of them, right? I mean, you see these cheap ones,
Okay,
but it's kind of like,
750. I was close. 750 at Best
oh, there,
Buy.
yeah,
right
that's
now,
not bad at all.
And then let me tell you the story. So I was wrong. Okay, 256.
I find Lenovo Chromebooks are interesting to me because they're so steeped in obviously the PC world with Microsoft and Windows. So I'm curious to see what that experience is like too.
Yeah, look, I'm looking forward. I've got some writing to do this afternoon, and I'm actually going to be on the go. I'm going to be in Oakland, across the bay, while my spouse is having, hanging out with some friends, and I'm going to sit in my car with this laptop and write, and I will let you guys know what I think. Eventually.
How heavy is it? Is it light?
It's about the same as MacBook Air, 2.5, 2.7. It's a little heavier than I'd like. It's not like Asus A series, like the new one that came out, the Snapdragon X, the A14. That's like less than 2 pounds. It's amazing. It's all, it's made of that Serra aluminum, all of it. And it's their entry level Snapdragon X series laptop, but it doesn't feel entry level in any way, shape, or form. And it looks exactly like this. It looks exactly like a MacBook Air as well. It doesn't have that tapered design that you normally see on a lot of Asus or Lenovo laptops. It has that perfectly square-ish, flat, design. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. We got a bunch of news items I'm going to kind of rapid fire through, and we can spend a little bit of time on some of them maybe. But here we go. The first one is that, and that was last week's news actually, and I forgot to include in last week's discussion, that the OnePlus 15 might drop the Hasselblad branding. And I am like, what? Because here's the thing, Oppo and OnePlus both have the Hasselblad branding, and Oppo and OnePlus have become more and more unified ever since they did join. It started with a common code base between ColorOS and OxygenOS, which upset a lot of people. But I think today ColorOS and OxygenOS are both really great, and I really like them. So it's become irrelevant, I think. But the hardware also, some Oppo phone got the alert slider, and then Oppo now is switching over to an action button type design, which is what the Find X8 Ultra has, and copying Apple there. It's programmable, but of course you no longer have that tactile feel of the slider. But I've got the OnePlus 13S here. It's in a case. I showed it last week on the show. It's the pink one. And that one also has the action button. This is the forbidden fruit from India, the mini OnePlus phone. And so it's definitely, there's some commonalities between OnePlus and Oppo that we're seeing all the time. And so where I'm going with this is that the Hasselblad is another commonality. And does that mean Oppo is also dropping Hasselblad? Does that mean that partnership is finally over? And if it does, why? And no. And that is one of the things that made Oppo phones. And I know a lot of it is just, a lot of people think it's just marketing. And I've played with Oppo and OnePlus phones like the 13R and other Oppo phones that don't have the Hasselblad branding and still have great cameras.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about that. I'm just more like, it was such a differentiator, just like, Leica on the Xiaomi phones and Zeiss on the Vivo phones and the Sony phones. Why not keep that partnership going? And especially you get the X pan mode and all these cool modes and stuff. I don't want to lose any of that stuff. And I'm like, so yeah.
I have to say, it's the X pan mode on OnePlus is one of my favorite camera modes, period. It's especially useful on the OnePlus Open. With that screen. But I do think there is some, I think for some of us, including myself, I hope there was more coming out of that partnership. I know there are some color calibrations they do for the cameras, but maybe whether it's adding Zeiss has the Zeiss Star coating on Sony phones, and maybe I think the Huawei phone. I don't know.
No, it was Huawei, but no, Zeiss was never. Is it still? There used to be Leica, but are they doing Zeiss now?
Vivo
is definitely has T-Star coating, and Sony
the
definitely
T-Star
has
coating.
T-Star,
That's it. Vivo. I'm mixing them up, but Sony does obviously because they're
it's pretty much Sony and Zeiss, right?
But also who has Sony phones these days? But going back to it though, I think. Yeah, you had cool modes like Xpan, but I think for some of us, we wanted to see them be a little more aggressive, because when we look at the partnership with Leica and what they've done with Xiaomi and what they're able to do with like lens calibration and even the selection of like the magnification levels and stuff. I think that's a lot of us had hoped for more of that kind of thing. And this is where I don't know. I think, isn't it right that Hasselblad is actually owned by a drone company now?
Is it?
Yeah, I feel like that happened. I don't know if they're still owned. Oh my God, spacing on. It's like what's the most popular?
They had a partnership with DJI, but did DJI acquire them?
I thought they acquired them, but all that to say is like I wonder if there's something going on there. But you think there would kind of like what we're talking about with Samsung or Apple, by opening it up to other, like having it on the OnePlus phone, you're going to have more people recognize the brand and recognize the technology. And I'm not saying someone's going to buy a OnePlus 13 and then jump into like one of those Hasselblad medium format cameras, but it is wild. So part of me feels sad about it, but part of me feels like there could have been maybe more, or they could have shown more what the results of that partnership.
I agree. But I did like what they had, and if it's ending, I'm kind of bummed because I really felt that made OnePlus.
And what replaces it, right? Is that's the big and what stays there? Do we get X-Pan still, or probably not? But yeah.
We spoke about thin folding phones earlier, and Magic V5 has been teased by the company officially. It's coming July 2nd, and we now know the thickness, and it is 8.8 millimeters thin. At that point, it's bragging rights, and Honor is totally about bragging rights, and I'm totally on board with them being about bragging rights. Somebody's got to drive this, and Honor is driving it, and hooray for that. But wow, like I'm excited. Honor doesn't give us devices, most of us in North America, because they don't want to sell here, and there's a problematic weird thing that we still think they're Huawei. I mean, let's be real, right? Like they deny it, and but the reality is when you look at their products side by side with Huawei products, like, oh my God, the design similarities, like the Huawei Pura 80 just came out last week. We talked about it. It's the camera phone flagship. And if you look at the camera pod on that, it's identical, that triangular design, to the Honor 400. You look at the camera pod on the V3 and the leaks we've seen of the V5, and it looks identical to the camera pod on the Huawei Trifold Ultimate. Okay? Like, come on.
But also, I think like we were talking about with OnePlus and Nothing, right? The Honor brand was really associated with like value and budget phones, and it's kind of fun to see them kind of like, what are we going to do?
You're
right. It's and I'm all
premium.
for I'm all for having the thinnest phone change doing every other week. I love what Honor's doing. Yeah,
me too. And I don't want to pan them, but look, let's be realistic. It's just Huawei for the West, okay? And that's fine. Because Huawei for the West, Huawei is kicking butt. Their stuff is amazing, and I really wish we could have them back. But if you want GMS and you want a Snapdragon chip in there, Honor is your choice. And for better or for worse, whether or not that's true, that they're part or not, like, I don't care. That's politics at this point, and we've talked about it at length on the show. I don't want to rehash it. But I'm excited about this V5 to see what they bring to the table, especially on the camera front. Because right now I think like the thickness front is being we're done with that. It's good. We can stay where we're at. Although I know it's going to continue. But, the camera package on the V3 was really compelling last year. And not in the best package, but it was very balanced. You look at the Oppo Find N5, and they sacrificed the ultra-wide. They went to an 8 megapixel kind of crappy ultra-wide, though it has a lot of computational oomph behind it because of the 8 Elite to make it go well. Compared to the Open or Find N3, it's not the same league. You don't have that super awesome 48 megapixel ultra-wide anymore that you had. The Open is a poster child for a balanced camera system on a folding phone. And we didn't get that with the N5. And, but Honor has consistently delivered very, very balanced, even if they're not top-notch cameras on their folding phone. And so has Vivo, and so has, Xiaomi, right?
Yeah, and the Honor, I think this is right, last year with their foldable, but maybe the regular phone, had the silicon carbon batteries that we're talking about.
They're the ones who started it.
Yeah.
And everybody's following now, so.
Yeah, so I think you add that in there because I feel like at some point it is exciting to see which phone is the thinnest, whatever week of the year. Yeah. But then it's the other side, it's the cameras and battery, right? Those are the two other things we want, and extra price, so.
So stay tuned for July 2nd, folks. I put a link to GSM Arena's coverage so far on the Magic V5. Similarly, the Vivo X Fold5 is out, and we know pretty much everything about it now. And No surprises here. It's super thin, not as thin as the Honor. It's light. So it's 9.7 millimeters folded, 4.55 millimeters unfolded. So it's a little thicker than the N5. And, obviously the Magics. But it's the odd thing about it, it's really nice. The odd thing about it is Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. What? Like, are we in 2024 again? 6,000 milliamp hour battery. It's got 80-watt wire charging. It's got like wireless charging at high speed, like maybe 50 or 40 watt. It's got a 50 megapixel main camera, Zeiss branded, Zeiss T-Star coded, 1.57 f-stop, OIS. It's got a 3x periscope lens with OIS, also 50 megapixel. It's got a 50 megapixel ultra wide. I mean, the camera system on this sounds really fantastic. I'm just like going, what's up with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, and
like 8S Gen 4 would have made sense.
Yep. And
right,
that's
a continuation
what we're seeing in a few
different
phones doing that right now. And I wonder about that. I wonder about the longevity of if for someone who buys that, if you're going to get 2 or 3 years out of that before that processor kind of starts lagging behind. So
yeah, check that out, folks. I'll have a link in the show notes as well. And then speaking of wrapping up the folding story, last week we talked about Xiaomi's Mix Flip 2 that's coming June 26th, but now we have a teaser of the colors and the design, and it looks very much like the Mix Flip from before, the version 1. This is version 2. The big news here, from what I hear, is 8 Elite, of course. Wow, awesome. Another 8 Elite foldable. Because remember, Samsung's rumors right now is that it's going to have an Exynos chip for the Flip. So the only other 8 Elite folding flip phone right now is the Razr Ultra, right? But the big news is last year, the Mix Flip had a telephoto 2x non-OIS and a regular OIS 50 megapixel main, both 50 megapixels, but no ultra wide, which was like that error that Moto did with the Razr Plus last year, right? And we really panned them for that, and then they course corrected with the Ultra this year. Well, guess what? They course corrected too with this Mix Flip 2, because it has an ultra wide instead of that stupid 2x useless telephoto.
Yeah, I'd rather do 2x digital zoom or whatever crop sensor zoom on these phones than the dedicated camera. Ultra wide, so you can't fake an ultra wide.
They have a cool
and you get macro. Sometimes you get macro modes out of these. So
absolutely. That's the other benefit. And there's a checkerboard colored back on one of them, which is really cool. Look, I got the Mix Flip original. I'll request a review unit of this, especially when it goes global, because I think it's China only for now. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, there's a phone here on the list that you have. The Poco F7, it's out now. I mentioned it was coming. It has a very cool cyberpunkish looking design. You have it there. So
I have all 3 colors. So I got obviously the white,
very
the black.
Nice.
But
so I only have the 7 Pro and from like 3 months ago, and they also made a 7 Ultra.
Yeah, this looks like it's like if RoboCop was turned into a phone. It's got this really cool chrome back on it.
I love the camera pod with that slash through it.
Yeah, this camera pod with a slash, and that continues through all their design. Like the wallpapers have it and all that. So
why don't you continue showing this while I read out some specs?
I'm gonna wipe it down.
Yeah, sounds good. So IP68 is one thing, of course. Most phones are like that. It's got an aluminum frame, which is very exciting because even the 7 Pro doesn't have that. And then it's an 8S Gen 4. So there you go. It's possibly one of the first phones with 8S Gen 4 because we know that nothing Phone 3 will have it. 6,500 milliamp hour battery. And in India, it's a 7,550 milliamp hour battery. Wow. And then let's see, 90 watt hypercharge. Doesn't have wireless charging. Of course, you don't expect that. It's a 1280p display, so 1.5K, nice. AMOLED, 120 hertz. And it's got 2 cameras on the back, 50 megapixel, and with OIS, and then an 8 megapixel ultra wide, which I think is perfectly a good combo to have, especially for $399.
Yeah, that's the price point. Like, what is everyone else doing? Like, how did the iPhone 16e cost so much when people are doing phones like this?
Well, this is the thing about Chinese phones, though. Like, I mean, especially the ones that are sold in India, they're just like priced so right. And it's like, it hurts when we Westerners look at it and go like, what? But yeah, there you go. There's the F7.
And what I like about phones like this is if you forget the resolution of your camera, you can just read it on the back of the phone. It'll just let you know.
Yeah, if you forget, it's convenient.
If you forget, like, oh, what is it? 40 or 50? It's 50. It tells you right there.
So, have you used it for a while? Any quick first impressions?
I've had like a couple of days with it. They sent us all the colors because we were excited about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like that screen looks really good. The battery, it's actually drained right now, but I don't think I've charged it but once over a week.
Yeah.
But it's wild. And I'm a fan of these. And I know, I feel like, again, these are other we talked about like Samsung getting behind, but I wish some more of these kinds of like Chinese style phones or Chinese made phones came to the US, because when we get excited about something like the Nothing 3A or the Pixel 9A, we want more things like this.
Yeah,
These
I like this.
Well-built
This
phones.
500, less than 500, 300, 500 price point is really exciting to me. Speaking of batteries, I have the Realme, their flagship with the 7,000 milliamp hour battery in it. I reviewed that on the show a couple of weeks back, and it's amazing having 7,000 milliamp hours. On light use, you can do 3 days. On heavy use, 2 days, no problem. You can do 2 days of CS on a charge, like no problem at all. Wow. It's the GT7. There's GT7 Pro as well that came out earlier with a Snapdragon, but this has a MediaTek chip in it. It's got I believe the 9400E, which is their economy flagship chip. So it's a bit detuned from the Pro. It doesn't have as good a camera system, but the big selling point of that Realme was the 7,000 milliamp hour. It's not the only one. Xiaomi, every Chinese brand right now in that mid-range-ish, lower tier flagship, upper tier mid-range, or even mid-range has like a 7,000 version of their phone. And again, silicon carbon. And again, I'm calling it, I've said it 3 times on the show, 3 shows in a row now, 10,000 milliamp hour, mark my words, within 2 years on a regular, everyday phones, regularly in India and China, 100%.
I remember for years you'd probably go to like MWC or CES and there'd be that Energizer or Duracell phone.
The 1-inch
I feel like
phone.
they just sold that technology and put them in all these Chinese phones. It's so wild.
Exactly. Let's talk quickly about 2 more phones that were announced this week. One I think is very exciting because we love Fairphone for their recyclability, reusability, fixability. The Fairphone 6 is out. And it looks really hot. And unlike the past where you could remove all of the back cover, this has a kind of a fixed cover above that includes the camera pod. And then the 2/3 of the bottom are removable for you to swap all the parts. So it's an interesting change in design for them, because in the past they've always had the completely removable back. But honestly, if it's still as serviceable, I'm not worried about it. I'm going to link to the CNET article. Katie wrote this, so check it out. What's your thought on Fairphone in general?
I'm a big fan of the company, and the new one they launched this week or announced this week, I'm excited for. And I feel like I hope other brands would see what these guys are doing and copy it or emulate it. I know for years we've had like, I would not put this next to something like the Light Phone 3 or something like that, but there's these off-brand that are smaller companies kind of doing some like just crazy wild things, and sustainability is probably still a big issue. We hear Samsung and Apple talk about how much recycled parts they put into their devices and stuff, but that's just like that number times the scale just doesn't add up at some point. So I'm excited. Obviously, this Katie is with CNET. She's in the UK. I think they're getting a phone, so I'm excited to hear more about it and what it's like to use it. But also, what's always fun is they show you how to take it apart. I think that's so fun.
Yeah, no, this is what I like about it. It's like, it's not for me because I want to spend that kind of money on more features and more specs, but I respect what they're doing, and I think I want to see more of that happening. And I also want to see the price point go down, hopefully in the future. Yeah. Or the specs go up. I think this is really awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about just seeing where it goes and stuff, especially with all these other phones that are coming out the next couple of weeks.
The last phone we have is kind of a bit of an outlier. I think it's out. I mean, if GSM Arena says it's out, it's going to be out. They're the Bible here. And I've seen a few reviews out there. So this is the Titan from Unihertz, was like a BlackBerry Passport clone that came out a few years back, a couple years ago or something. And this is just version 2 of that. And so it's got the same form factor, like Passport shaped BlackBerry keyboard, square screen phone. But of course, as Android, and that's nothing new. Again, Unihertz has done this a few times now. What's the big story here is, that it has a weird little display in the back, dual screens, like around the camera pod is like basically a smartwatch level display with like a few little, I don't know, what do you want to call them, widgets or something that you can run. It's very interesting.
I love these. I love phones that have these screens. One of my favorites is the Asus ROG phones that have that back little customizable
And they're working
screen.
on getting AT&T certification for Cricket and AT&T. So it's not like, and this is something they've done before. Like they've been sold by, carriers at like the budget carriers before. 5,050 milliamp hour battery, 33 watt charging, Dimensity 7300, 12 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. Is a dual SIM phone. Let's see, 50 megapixel main camera, 8 megapixel telephoto. Interesting, no ultra wide. Okay. And wow, so it's sold on Kickstarter, and the MSRP is $400, and right now you can get it for $270 early bird on Kickstarter. So I guess it's coming. And they probably have some review units out there. The big thing here is the display, right? It's a 4.5 inch 1440 by 1440, just like the Passport was.
Yeah. And I think the display in the back is curious because I'm hoping you can probably use it for like shoot video or do a selfie using the back camera versus the front. But
that would make sense. Yeah. But look, I love weird form factor phones. And it's not that weird because, we've had the Passport around for a while, but I'm really excited. I really like what they're doing here. I'm on board. I think this is great.
I think you look at that, you look at something like the Fairphone that we were just talking about, and then you compare that to some of the wild foldables that might be coming out. It's just an exciting time for devices. Again, I know a lot of the easy or lazy criticism is that phones are boring, but they're not really that boring. It's just maybe the mainstream phones are boring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we wrap up? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I got to say this. So we talked a lot about hardware. We talked a lot about software. I think the other thing is a big thing for us at CNET is how long is software support and security support coming out for phones? So looking back at something like Nothing, I'm curious about that. Obviously, Samsung has a great track record with 7 and 7 for their phones, 7 years for OS updates and 7 for security updates. But that's the other little like wrinkle in all these things. We see some of these affordable phones, even from Chinese brands. It's how long is that software really going to be up to date for? And when do they get the updates? Is it going to be something where it's like Android 16 is out for 6 months and then we start seeing updates to that phone, or are they getting it within the first few weeks or even month of it? So, but that's my thought. It's a great time. I love summertime. I miss the days where July used to be kind of quiet years ago.
Yeah.
But it's so exciting because there's just so much coming out. And if you're into phones and technology, it's neat to see how these companies are playing against each other or riffing back and forth. I'm wondering about that Flip, though. That Flip's got to be good, Samsung.
Yeah, let's hope. Listen, we should wrap up. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, your various social media handles, personal ones, and also what you do at CNET in general, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I've been at CNET for almost 9 years. I'm a managing editor. In fact, I run the mobile sections for watches and phones, so very apt subject matter today. You can find me at cnet.com. You can find my videos and stuff on our YouTube channel at CNET. You can also find me personally on X, on Instagram at Directed by Patrick, as well as Blue Sky and Threads. So
fantastic, folks! Go listen to Patrick on the various videos on CNET. Go read his articles on CNET. Go at him on social media and tell me and him what you think of the show and what you have questions or comments to make. You know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankerl, TNKGRL. Like the comic book character, drop all the vowel. That's my handle everywhere. And I'm primarily active on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads, but I'm on all the platforms. So go add me and find me there. Talk with me and Patrick. The podcast itself is at mobiletechpodcast.com on all the major platforms. So if you're first time here, please subscribe. And if your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. And there's a YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. It's basically, the occasional videos, like there'll probably be a hands-on video for Samsung when I'm in New York. But I publish every now and then. It's not super common, but if you want free video content, you can get it there. And then finally, there's a Patreon. If you want to help me out or support the podcast, please consider the Patreon. The Patreon is cool because you get a video version of this podcast with extra bits inside. Sometimes we get overtime or there's some fun stuff that happens and more visual stuff. And you get it about a day in advance. And it's exclusive Patreon. $5 a month buys you a podcast every week, which is what I do, a podcast every week. So you get it in advance and you get to watch us on video and see our faces, our reactions, brandished devices. So consider supporting me with Patreon, patreon.com/Tankerl. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, Mint Mobile. So as you know, I'm constantly reviewing multiple phones, and while that's fun, it also means I'm constantly spending a lot of money for wireless service on multiple SIMs. That's where Mint Mobile comes in, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's podcast. If you also want to save money on your wireless service, switch to Mint Mobile. As tech-savvy early adopters, you've probably heard of Mint Mobile before, but let me quickly tell you how awesome their service is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't have to sacrifice any coverage, speed, or data. They're built on the nation's largest 5G network. They keep costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? In my experience testing phones, Mint Mobile delivers the same data speeds and call quality as the big three for a fraction of the cost. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to their eSIMs, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. No more standing around and waiting in line at a big wireless store. You can keep your current device and phone number and easily switch services. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a new SIM free of charge. All Mint Mobile plans include unlimited nationwide talk and text, lightning fast 5G, and free mobile hotspot. Mint will show you how much data you use each month and recommend plans that save you money. Mint also offers a modern family plan that lets you set up a super affordable family plan with as little as 2 lines. Use my link mintmobile.com/mobiletech to get premium wireless starting for $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/mobiletech. Stop paying more than you need on your wireless bill and start saving big with Mint Mobile. And Patrick, thanks so much for being my guest this week. Much appreciated.
Thank you, and I'll see you in New York, okay?
Absolutely. We'll see you there, and we'll have you back on the show at some point in the future. And folks, we will have a show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.